Hi folks, if you are someone who wants to host in the internet and don't want to use Vercel because that server can be a custom node server, that server can be a Python server, or you want to host for temporary purposes or for your own use case, then where should you look further? So the first option is always you can use VPS, but you know the hassle of setting up VPS and it takes a lot of effort to set up VPS. But if you are someone new and you are hosting for the first time and you don't want to use Vercel, then I have got one alternative for you, and that is Railway. This is the Railway platform which you can see. And the benefit of using Railway is that you can host any custom server. It can be Next.js or React or Node or Golang or Python, any server you can host. The only thing which you need to have is that it should have a Docker file. Even if you don't have a Docker file and you have a GitHub repository, Railway can fetch that GitHub repository and create a new Docker file from that repository. But sometimes it throws error. So it is always better and a safe option to have your own Docker file. So I will explain you how to do the setup and how to build application. So let's get into the video. So you can see in the Railway, this is the landing page. You have to go railway.com and you have to click in dashboard if you are not logged in. If you're not logged in, it will show login. So go to dashboard, and again these are my projects which you can see, but it will be empty for you. So what you have to do, you have to click on the new. And earlier I have shown you how to use database, but if you don't want to use database, then what are the options for you? That is we are going to talk about. So let's see. So you can see this is the first option, that is GitHub repo. So whatever GitHub repository I have, I can launch it. So for example, maybe this private repository which I built in my first day of 30-day series, where I have actually shown how to build a React application. So let's get into it. So this was the one. So let me host it for you. So I built this in Lovable, but then now, for example, if I want to host, how can I host? So this was it. So let me host this one. And this particular repository didn't have a Docker file, but it will create a Docker file on its own because Railway use something called Nixpacks, and I will show you what that is. Let me, yep. So you can see it is using Nixpacks. So this is an open source like package which is built by Railway itself, and it is used by Coolify, and it is used by another applications to build Docker file. So that's where Railway has an edge. So you can see this repository didn't have any Docker file, so it is creating a Docker file and it will launch this application. So let it launch and let us understand how to create a Docker file if our build gets fit. So this is one repository pro semi-Golang server which I've created in my early days of learning SaaS application. So this was my first Golang server, and I've created a Docker file for this one. So don't need to understand the code. You just need to understand what Docker file contains, and you can create your own and you can host it for your own use case. So your server can be a Python server as well. So you can see this is the Golang server, and you can see in the Golang server what Golang version I need. So this is the app, like the app work directory app, which we need to copy. We need to first of all go to this app directory. It is like standard method to go inside the working directory of the container. So you go to this one, you copy the dependencies, you have copied everything, source code and all, then you run this application. And again, I need a Linux application, and I've given the configuration of how to do this one and how to actually build this application. So this is a Go specific, and if you're using Next.js or any React server, so that is pnpm run build, and that will do the thing. And again, the for like the UI, like OS and all, what OS we need, what so hardware customization we need, we actually give this in Docker file. I'm not also sure about what it typically means, but it is just a Linux version in my opinion. And after that, you set the working directory, what is again this working directory words, and then you copy the compiled binary which was generated, because Go is a compiled language. But again, for your Next.js or React application, it will be your node modules which you will actually copy. And again, you expose the port in which you want to listen to, and that is how you define a Docker file. That is how you should actually write. Also, I have one example of one application, and I have also start this repository. So this is the better chatbot. Again, I have covered this in my video. So here also they have given a Docker file. Let me go to the Docker file. So okay, so it is inside it. So if you go to the Docker file, also Docker Compose don't work in Railway. So you have to create Dockerfile loop for each container. So you can see the working directory, what version we need, then we copy pnpm install and everything, and after that we expose the port in which port we want to listen, and then we copy the directory. So this is how you actually do it in Dockerfile. And after you have written the code in Dockerfile, you just have to go here in the new, then you have to go to the GitHub repository, and you can select any GitHub repository which you want, and it will automatically detect the Dockerfile. Now, for example, your project depends on something we call database. Then what to do? So let us see whether our React application is deployed or not. So I think it is still building, and obviously you can see the build time is much longer for Node modules because it installs and all everything like that. So we will wait. And what to do if you want to link a good database here. So now it is very simple. You already got your React application up and running, and make React application up and running. Now you can go here and you can choose database of your choice: Postgres, Redis, Mongo, SQL. So everyone uses PostgreSQL, so you can click on PostgreSQL, and if you say, once you have done this, it will give you username, user, like the password for the Postgres database. So if you go to the variables, here you will get the public URL, database URL is like the internal URL, the public URL, and database name, database password, port, and everything. So this is what you get when you are using Postgres containers. So and for example, you have environment variables for this React application. You can go here and you can add the variables from the Postgres database. So you can use the shared variable, or you can use the raw editor to directly paste the variable, and you can use this one also. And if you don't want, if you want another IDs, like for example, what are the domains for this particular container, you can get that also. So internally, this is how you link everything via the environment variables, and it will automatically get fetched. So this is the railway deployment 101, which you actually need to know. So for example, if I show you what do I mean by the Postgres database and all, so let me go to the map your ideas, or maybe backend programming. So you can see I had one Golang server, which is again from the Docker file. I have one Redis server. I have one Postgres server. So every container had its own variable. You can see that. And again, if you go to this one, you can see everyone has their own variables, right? Just go in your container which you have created, go to variables, and you can see in the DB host, the name, the password, the port, whatever secret keys environment variables are needed for my this container, this Golang programming Golang server, we just put the variables here and we are done. So this is how you create all the link, and this is how you deploy the railway. And this was the railway 101 in my opinion. And if you have any doubt or comments, please let me know to the comments so that I can see and I can explain you. So let's see whether it is installed or not. So you can say it is installed, it is deployed successfully. And if you want to see what is the URL, you can always go to this one. Okay, so this one is actually internal linked. So if you select generate domain, it will generate a domain for you. Now it has generated domain. Now if I go to this one, you can see my React application will be up and running. So actually we have covered this in our first day of 30-day series, I guess, using Laravel. So this is it, guys. Now if you want to delete, you can delete also. So this is it, guys. This is Relo 101, and I will see you in the next video with another implementation of N18 server deployment. Till then, take care and